so many groups. She's a powerful woman, and we are rooting for her for president. Come when the next election, 2022, right? Yes, so we are rooting for her for president. So she's none other than Oluwatosin Oyebola. She's a divisional head people management for Credit Direct. She's had over 16 years of experience in HR, both as from a consulting perspective and also from a practitioner perspective. So ladies and gentlemen, please let's give a warm welcome to Tosin, our facilitator for the day. Please, Mike, let's clap for her. See fine face. Omalicha.
How now?
I'm fine, thank
you. SKP. I saw your initials. I'm like, okay. I'm loving that.
Yes, please.
How are you? How is everyone today? I know it's a Sunday and it's easy preparing for the week ahead. Yes, we thank God that gradually the environment is returning, quote unquote, back to normal.
Yes.
Economic activities are picking up better, so we thank God for that. We trust Him to complete that which He has started in our nation and across the world. Okay, so she gave me this assignment. She said she wants me to talk about strategic human resource business partnering, and I thought it was an interesting topic, primarily because there's been, to some extent, some, would I say, lack of clarity around HRBP and how that is really different from what HR is generally. Is it another facade that people are just calling some big names just to show that they are relevant in the system and all? The subject itself is quite broad, I would say. But so what I've added to Shei's title is I just put an overview because we can't do justice to it in 1 hour. I remember when I did a course on it a number of years ago. This was like a 3 to 4 days course, and then I had to crash into 1 hour. So really what I'm going to be doing is an overview of what strategic human resource business partnering is. I will just share my slide now. Can we all see my slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right, just before I start and to get a feel of those who are in the session, let me hear your expectations from this session very quickly, and then two, your own understanding of what human, let's just even leave the strategic part of it alone. Let's talk about the HRBP part. What do you understand by it? Very quickly, who wants to go? Who wants to give me their thoughts very quickly?
Anyone can go, just unmute yourself and talk.
So here's what I do. When people keep quiet, I decide to call names myself. So before I do, save yourself and just say something. There's no right or wrong answer. We're all here to learn from each other. So please.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Good evening. My name is Omolade. So from my perspective, I think human resource business partnering has to do with strategically bringing value to an organization. That is bringing in sync the organization's goals and objectives and to that of the individual employee, just to ensure that there is productivity and efficiency taking place. So there's going to be a lot of policies. You're going to be involved in building policies. So it's no longer the transactional HR functions that we do, payroll and employee relations. But now you're going to be among the executive teams. You're going to be building policies. You're going to be advising on policies there, something like that. That's what I understand it to mean.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your contribution. Kemi Sola, I see your hand raised. Kemi Sola, do you want to unmute your mic and say something?
Can you hear me? Good evening, everyone.
Yes, we can now. Good evening.
Okay. What I understand by strategic HR business partner is when you provide support to the business in terms of value department, or you work like in a big organization. HR business partner ensure that people are delivering their KPIs, coaching them, mentoring them, asking them why, how they can, how the business partner can help them. She doesn't necessarily have to be the one training them, but then she can always have tools or referrals of trainings or facilitators to do that. So a business partner is like partnering with line managers, partnering with employees to coach, to mentor, to help improve their performance. And then in turn, we get back the value, and in turn we have a return value. That's ROI. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your contribution. And I won't say either of you is wrong. There's been things that you mentioned that are very critical to what really HRBP is, and we'll be discussing that them down the line. I hope that this session will bring clarity around, what the scope of HRBP is as compared to other functions within HR practice itself. Okay, I'll start with this quote or a food for thought. Of course, there's no way we're going to be talking about strategic HRBP and not talk about Dave Ulrich. All right. So I wouldn't have done justice if I did not mention his name at any point in these presentations. Just thought it good to also start with a quote from him, and primarily not necessarily on HRBP, but the essence of HR, to an organization. Dave Ulrich said that the most important thing HR can give an employee is a company that wins in the marketplace. All right. HR is not what goes on inside. In other words, the various activities and processes that we carry out within the HR function. It is how we add values to our customers, to our investors, and to our communities. That is what Dave Ulrich, the very father of HRBP, says to us. That first and foremost, let's lay that background. The purpose of HR is not, as we typically HR people say, we are focused on our people. All right. He's saying here that, see, your first and foremost business is how do we add value to the customers, to our investors, to our communities. You can then bring that on to say, what role does HR play in this value I'm supposed to add to these guys? So that's one thing that we should let's think as we go forward, because as we move forward, you hear more towards the business and probably less about the employee. And that's the tricky thing about this particular role, is focusing more on the business than your typical HR, which is more focused on the employee itself. Okay, some background. Again, like I said, it's an overview. The very concept of HRBP was introduced in 1997, like I said, by the father of HRBP himself, Dave Ulrich. When he introduced his book, Human Resource Champion, that's where the concept of all of this. So if you haven't read it before, I would advise that you get the book, and he's written a number of other books afterwards. So you might want to read also his sequels to sort of update your skills. So he was the one that introduced this concept. And the emphasis of this HRBP model, as he called it, is to focus on strategic alignment of HR objective to that of the company. So while your typical HR is what we say is to hire, develop, reward, and retain employees. The focus here, you can see in that definition, is that it's focusing on the employees. This HRBP model is trying to say, you know what, we get what you do in HR, but there must be that alignment between those activities you're performing and what your organization seeks to achieve. The moment there is no alignment, there's no connection, you're just really playing on your own. This also came to fore amidst the time when there was this argument about, can HR have a seat at the table? you know, and then how would you have a seat at the table if you don't keep the business in focus? If the business is not your focus, there's so much you can do. You can only get near the table, you cannot sit at the table. If you're going to sit at the table, then your business must be your focus. Whatever skill you're bringing in, whether the IT, HR, to sit at the table means that you are talking business, not necessarily just your own core area of specialty. So the focus for the HRBP model was that alignment between the various HR activities and the business objectives, all right? So HRBP does not replace or eliminate existing specialist or admin roles of HR. So this is not to say that, okay, it used to be HR before, it's not HRBP, that's not the case. In fact, the success of the HRBP model heavily relies on other HR activities going smoothly and efficiently, all right? So if you don't have as much as, oh, HRBP seems fancy, if the very foundation of your function, the administrative areas, the specialist areas, aren't functioning properly, there's so much you can do to partner with the business if you don't have those areas right. So it's not replacing or eliminating, or it's not saying that HRBP is more important. It's just a different focus, you know, for the function. So the business partners focus on specific HR needs. Now, and this is where we begin to delve into it. They are focusing on a specific either business line or segment. So depending on how your organization is structured, it might be market focused. So for example, if your org structure is largely something north, south, that kind of thing, you might have business partners that are dedicated to those areas, geographic areas. If it's designed around, say, products or services, so maybe you have in FMCG, you know, you have food and allied products. You have cosmetics, for example. You might have HRBPs targeted at those business lines. So their role is to see how do all of this engine going on in HR, the recruitment, all the activities, data, employee data management that's going on, how can we ensure that it's adding value to your line of business? So that person is focusing on a particular line of business. They don't serve everybody at the same time. But here's the trick, because what then happens if you only have a 50-man company? Are you saying you won't have a HRBP? Because I mean, how do you split that into smaller units? It will be inefficient and all of that. So this is where when it comes to adapting, your context now really is important. So that's where you find that the head of HR also wears the hat of the HRBP in those circumstances. But in much larger organizations, they have that sphere that they can cover, and there are bigger structures and substructures within those organizations that this will be useful for. But not to say that it's not useful for smaller organizations also. The concept is definitely to be adopted even for smaller organizations. Now, the term business partnering is not only reserved for the HR function. You know, even other functions we have seen have started adopting it. So you find even in finance, you have business partners. So the same concept, the finance person dedicated to that particular business line or that business area. You know, you have legal BPs, you know, for banks, for example, you have legal persons that are, you know, assigned and focused on a particular area or function of the business. So this is not peculiar to HR. We're just saying that here, at this point, HR is saying dedicating a specialist, you know, who would go and work with the a particular business line. You know, in carrying out my research, you know, there was an argument, and somebody even said to the extent that even the loyalty of the HRBP is more to the business than to HR function itself. And I found that very interesting to say, okay, so the person is out to support the business. All right, so you find that, and that's where usually you find what do I call it? A rubbing of there can be people stepping on each other's toes when it comes to HRBPs and HR functions back end, because the person is more focused on solving problems for the business, while, you know, our regular HR people now, we want to stick to the policies we want to do. So there's always that, you know, friction that happens now and then, that both HRBPs and the specialists must learn to work together to resolve. At the end of the day, it's the business that we are serving. Just to bring some facts or background about the HRBP business model. Like I said at the beginning, this is just an overview, really. There's a whole lot in the book itself, Employee Resource HR Champions, that they've always wrote about. There's been books around that model, critics around that model. You have to now take each of these areas personally and then go and delve a bit more into it. I can only take you through so much in one. All right, so this is the popular Dave Ulrich HR model. So there's the HR model and there's the HRBP model, so that we can clarify and differentiate those ones very well. So Dave Ulrich says that, you know what, there are 4 primary responsibilities that HR plays to an organization. Can you put them in 4 spectrums? On the x-axis, or what you call the horizontal line, on the right hand, it says they're focused on people. All right, on the left, you see there's more focus on processes. All right, on your y-axis, on the top, you have more future focus, more strategic focus. And to your south, you have more operational focus. And those dimensions is how he has now described the various key functions of the of HR. All right. So, for example, the function that is future focused, but also has process in mind is the strategic partner, which is actually what we are focusing on today. All right. It says here the responsibility for strategic partnership with dedicated internal clients, alignment of HR with business objectives and coaching. So essentially, this person is, for want of words, a consultant to that business line. All right. What you find mostly is that a lot of team leads or managers are technical experts who have grown into that role. So while they may be extremely good at their functional areas, leading people and bringing people solutions might not be their area of expertise, and that's where the HRBP comes to play. To say, how can you give me your HR expertise to solve the problem I have in my area of the business? That's where the business partner comes in. So he takes what he knows to be the HR processes with a focus on what the corporate goals are, the strategic goals are, to solve problems for these clients of his. That's what the strategic partner essentially does. On the other side is the change agent, all right? So as you continue to plan for the future, we're all still in COVID, you know, and we all know how much change we quickly had to adapt to within this period. The role of the HRBP is to first and foremost, even identify the changes that are coming afar off and be able to plan for those things. And because those things will require that things change within your system, the HRBP has to be a change management expert, if you will. In other words, must understand the impact of change on the business, on your area of focus. That's the business line you're working with. You know, how will things change for them, and be able to prepare them for that change, both the manager and the people within that area. So communication they have responsibility for communication in that area for initiating the change. All right. One of the things we'll discuss later is the difference between your regular HR person and the HRBP. You know, you are the initiator. You are proactive. You're not reactive. You're not waiting for the change to happen and then responding to it. You must anticipate that this is going to happen. This is how we must respond before it comes. All right. So that's the change agent. On the south left of the diagram is the administrative expert. Now, I always caution people, why it's fancy to title somebody HRBP, it's fancy to, you know, have all these big names. Like I said before, your HR strategies become nothing if your administrative processes are not intact. Those are the wheels that make you function in HR. If they're not intact, there's so much problem solving you can do for the business. I mean, if your own home is scattered, you know, it's not well organized, how do you go out and help somebody else organize their own business? All right. So while this has been downplayed for years, and indeed, when you listen to the critics of the HR business, this model of Dave Ulrich, is to say that a lot of people are now trying to focus more on the business partnering aspect and neglecting the operational aspect of HR. That shouldn't be the case. As you will see in the HRBP model, all of those areas have their functions to play to make this HRBP model work effectively. So we're not, like I said, we're not replacing the role of the administrative expert. It must be there, for us to fulfill our role as HR function within the organization. So this person is responsible for transaction operations, generally in HR. So where you're talking about data management, you're trying to align with regulatory or legislative, laws and things like that. This person, all they are doing is operations. But like I said, this is the heart of what you do. If it goes wrong, every other thing on this chart goes wrong. If your admin is wrong, there's so much change you can impact, okay? So you always have to have this area intact. And then the popular one, which is what we know HR to be, the employee champion. Okay, so HR is the one that speaks on behalf of the employee, when it comes to things around representing them, engaging them, and all of that. So this person speaks for the employee. So essentially saying that the entire the HR function should have these 4-in-1 responsibilities. But here is where the HRBP model stands. Because it is more strategic and future focused, you realize that the role of the HRBP is mostly around these two, i.e. strategic partner and change agent. Strategic partner and agent, which would mean that they must be future focused, must understand the people that they have and the HR processes. They're not really into operational, that's someone else's responsibility. Theirs is, how can I take this business with my HR skills to the future? That's their focus essentially. I don't know if anybody has any question on this slide before I move to the next one. Any questions on this slide? Any need for clarity before I move on? Okay, I'll take it as a no. But if you have questions, please drop them on the comment, on the chat box. I'm sure that
Emmanuel raised a hand. Emmanuel.
Okay. Hi, Emmanuel.
Okay, Emmanuel, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Good evening, ma'am.
Hi. Good evening.
Yeah. Thanks so far for the explanation that you have been giving. I know you're on the right track, and I'm already picking up a lot of things. It's just as an addition. I don't know how maybe you can give a clarity on that. In terms of the HR business partners that I have come to grow into, more or less, because the kind of company that I work is more of an operations company, and HR helps to drive that. And literally, the head of HR has almost turned fully into operations. In fact, I was discussing with my boss last week or 2 weeks ago. I said it's an operational kind of HR that we are doing here, and for him, he said that's the aspect of business partnering. You're not just settling with how HR can help, advise business on how to grow it. It's not just that. You are also focusing. You're also looking at it from the dimension of what's going on in finance. What's the financial figures talking about presently, as much as you're also involved in operations as well. So
just to clarify, when you say operations, it's connection.
Made a statement that operations kind of like maybe your function is not operations related, but I'm just saying the kind of experience I'm having in terms of my business partner that.
Okay, so what I would like to clarify, can you hear me?
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me? What I'd like to clarify is what you mean by operations, because when we use these terms, we use them interchangeably in different organizations. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay, but can he hear me?
I think
Yes,
his network
it
is
should be
good.
able to.
Yes, I can hear you.
So just to respond to that is to clarify what you mean by, I'm not in this particular model, we're not referring to the business operations.
Yes.
We're referring here to HR operations.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, I think he has a delayed response or something. But I'll just respond, and if you still need me to clarify, please drop a comment on the chat box. So what we are focusing on here, this is the HR model, it's not the business model. So when we say operational focus here, it's operational as HR operations. So all the paper pushing, if you will, all the employee file management, if you will, data management of employees, all those things that are administrative, a lot of details go into it. That's what we're referring to here as operational. So what I'm saying is that the HRBP typically doesn't involve themselves in those details. There's somebody else who's responsible for that. They focus more on how do we move the business forward. Having these operational guys at the back end supporting and driving the process. I don't know if that is clear enough. There was somebody else who raised their hand. I can quickly take that question and I move on. There was a second hand.
Okay, my name is Samuel.
Hi, Samuel.
Can you hear me? Yeah,
Clearly.
I'm fine. Please, I want to ask, is there any difference between administrative management and HR management?
Again, your context will matter. All right. So in some businesses, when they say admin, they're referring to things like office administration. So in many cases, particularly in smaller organizations, you find HR and admin together. So there's HR and the admin function, which is your, do we have enough stationaries? Is the printer available? That side of the business is called administration. If that's what you're referring to, there are two different things. But if you're referring to HR administration, in other words, how do you manage HR, the day-to-day running of HR, the admin part of HR, that's what we're talking about here, so that we separate those terms from each other.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we move on to the HRBP model itself. This model helps us connect the different functions of HR as we would have, and probably we can also relate more with real life as it should work, operationalize it in our own various places of work. So you have primarily three parts. You have what you call, of course, what we're discussing right now, the human resource business partner. All right. We have what you call on the model, the center of excellence, and then your shared service center. And I'll try to explain what all of this mean. Now, your HR business partner, like we said, if you look up here, you have back end, you have front end, and this is the client. So whether you are servicing a particular business, an SBU, for example, a line of business or a geography or an area, whatever it is that however your business is structured, those will be your clients. So your clients can be the director of finance, e.g., or the director of food and agro-allied group, something like that. So that will be your client. The HRBP is the one that engages the client with future focus, with problem-solving mindset to say, what are the things that we can help you with, particularly when it comes to the most important resource in the organization, i.e. people, to drive productivity and performance in your area of business. So depending on how large organization, you might have 2 HRBPs, 4 HRBPs, depending on how large you are. That's why you have different HRBPs here. Now, I hope this example works. Let me try to use an analogy of a bus, when you go and take public transportation outside, and you enter a typical Lagos bus, all right? You have a conductor, you have a driver, all right? I hope I don't get myself in trouble with this analogy anyway, but let me try. All right, so the conductor is the one that calls for bus stop, collects the money, gives you change, all the activity is going on. And it's necessary for you to, otherwise you won't make money in your business, right? In that particular business, in this case, the transport business, you have to collect money. You have to, but if the driver is the same person collecting money, the likelihood that you will get there safely reduces. So you have somebody who their business is just where they're heading. But somebody else is handling, oh yeah, give me change, take your money. It's not correct. This is not the way we give it. Oh yeah. So let me use that analogy to say the conductor, that's the admin type person. You must collect the money for it to be profitable as a business, that transport business, which is why I'm saying that role of the driver is not replacing it. You must have it there and you must do it efficiently. Otherwise, you'll be driving a lot, but you won't be earning money. So that role, that admin role, that operational role is extremely important in HR. All right. But the driver has to be focused on where they're going. Where are we heading to? Okay, it's Mushi. What's the best route to get to Mushi? Where will traffic be at this point? And that's his business. It's minding his business. What is the best and safest route to take to Mushi at this point in time? What time must we get there? Otherwise, we are late and it doesn't make sense to even go there in the first place. That's his own mindset is doing that. If he's trying to do that and collecting or giving change, you know that there's confusion in the business. So what this is essentially saying is say, you know what, my business is to take this line manager to his destination. I will focus on that. If you now have issues of give me employment letter, guys, at the back. You have issues of my payslip is not called at the back. So there's somebody else who's handling those things. And those things are actually very, very, like I said, important. Otherwise, the service that HR will be providing won't be as palatable, which is why there must be a handshake and good alignment between both shared service, center of excellence, and the HR business partners. All right. So that HR business partner, I will say, using that example, is the driver that wants to get the line manager, assist them, support them, partner with them to get to their destination. But it's a conductor who must ensure that change is being collected, money is being paid, and all of that. Now, so what if we use that analogy? So who is the center of excellence? Now, before you take off at all, somebody will check the engine, that this engine, we have put water there, oil is there, their own expertise is the technicalities around how the vehicles will move, how you should organize the seats, how best, you know, when we're in COVID, they say, okay, you can only do 2 people per seat, for example, or something like that. They have put those structures in place. Those are the specialists. How do we, at what point should we admit people in? Somebody is specialized in that area, i.e. recruitment in our own discussion here. That's somebody's specialty. What is the design for recruitment? How do we define how and who enters an organization? Somebody sits down and crafts that. That's what you call specialists. All right, somebody sits down and says, okay, if the idea is to get the best hands in the industry, what sort of rewards should we, put in place for this organization? So before even, well, sometimes before the bus starts, but even as the bus is going, you're also changing those things because business realities change. So you have those experts who are typically not as seen as the business partners are, but they are thinking, getting feedback from the business partner to say, this thing is changing the business. Guys, you have to restructure. You said these policies like this. It's not working again. Look at it again. Go and review it. All right. So it's not the HRBPs will give ideas and feedback from the business to the Center of Excellence, but they will not sit back. They are the specialists. They are the consultants. They are the professionals in those specific areas, whether recruitment, total rewards, L&D, to say, let's design how this engine will work better. Or performance management, they say it's not working very well, it's not very objective. The guy will sit down at the back and say, how do we design it better? We have heard from this business, from that business, they're saying the same thing, means this thing isn't working. How do we redesign this process to be more acceptable to the people? So their work is to go back and rethink that process. That's what the Center of Excellence does. So I don't know if there's like clarity around separating those functions, but all of them still working in tangent. All right. So the shared service, like I said before, is largely administrative, transactional, what must happen. They must be efficient. They must be on point. So a lot of these things nowadays, what you now find, and they're putting them on technology. You have your HR app, HR applications to support those things because they're largely data-driven, and all of that. So you have like a HRIS to help you support your shared service center so that you don't have too many people, because when it comes to operations, you need more people to work. So that's where technology now comes in to say, you know what, you don't need as many people. Let's ride on technology to remove, to improve the efficiency of that function. That's where you have the shared service center. So these people are talking to even ex-staff who are asking for references. They're talking to, retirees who are asking for some petty letters and things like that. They are doing those things. So they are minding those businesses because they must be done. An ex-staff can't send you a letter and you say you're busy. No, you have to respond to them. They must be done. It's all about the company brand and you must protect it. But so that the company moves ahead, because you can't keep holding to the past, somebody has to be looking forward, and that's the HRBP's business. We have said, okay, our company wants to do 1, 2, 3. You need to sit down, this person sits down with the line manager to say, how are we going to achieve this objective? And what in terms of people are we going to put in place to make that happen? That's their business. So they're not bothering their mind about somebody sent a letter of reference and somebody's payslip is not good. That's not there. Somebody else is handling that at the background. Okay. So just to reiterate, Center of Excellence about HR specialists in areas such as recruitment, total rewards, learning and development, benefits, and all. Those people are specialists in those key HR functions, while the shared service center is largely operational activities, transactional tasks going on there for both current employees and even past employees, which is typically, for bigger business, particularly now driven by technology. Is this clear enough? Does this tell you how the various functions in HR, interact to serve the business? Any response? Yum 28.
Yeah. I would like to get the full details of the material that you are using at the end of the course.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
We'll share the slide. Yeah, sure.
Okay, fine.
Okay. All right. Any other clarity on this slide before we move on? Because this is really the essence of the interaction between the various functions in HR is important for us to understand. So that in terms of the alienation of responsibilities also within the HR functions, there's no friction. Everybody knows where their work scope starts and stops. So is that clear enough for everybody? Again, for smaller organizations, we realize that this is obviously for bigger, in some cases where you have a one-man HR person, you are the center of excellence, shared service center, HR business partner. I think what you need to know in that case that is the concept. So you can't be too much operational and center of excellence that you're not partnering with the business, in which case HR becomes very not supportive of the business, and that's not what you want. If you want to be an advocate of the people, then you must be in the forefront of what business is doing. So while it's good to be a specialist in whatever area you're doing, and while it's good to have your operations intact, you must also be a business partner to your business, even though you're wearing that all the various hats in one person. Okay. So just to put a definition around HRBP itself, but I think the explanation from the model should have provided that explanation. But let's just put some words around it. Society for Human Resource Management, which is a professional body for HR in the US, but I think a lot of people across the world are members, said that the HR business partner position is responsible for aligning business objectives with employee and management, something for him. And management in designated business units. Okay, the position formulates partnership across the HR functions, and that's important. They're not special people. All right, so let's not brand HR people as special people. That they are the tush ones of the HR team. That's not the point here. Is that everybody has their roles and they have a special role to play. Okay, that's it. But they have to work in partnership with all the other HR functions, the operational guys, the centers of excellence, or the specialists. They must work hand in hand for them to add value to the business. All right, so HRBP maintains an effective level of business literacy, and we'll get into that, what it means actually partner, with the business. About the business unit's financial position, I think somebody mentioned that understanding the business financials, we'll get to that plot point. It's mid-range plans, it's culture, and it's competition, all right? So essentially it's, like I said, if you don't remember anything, just remember your role is to align what HR is doing, to support the achievement of the business unit goals or the corporate goals as you would have it. That's really what HRBP is meant to do. Now, I like breaking things down easy. I like, because it helps me understand better. And I hope that the way I've broken down this, what I call the building blocks, would help us also provide a lot more clarity around what a strategic HR business partner really is. Now, so we know HRBP, why the strategic in front? I'll explain. So this HRBP was introduced in 1997. As you can imagine, it's gone through several evolutions. Some people have critiqued it and said, okay, the downside is that when you're now focusing on strategic part of the business, operations now begin to falter, etc. So people continue to fine tune to make it, better suited for their contexts, So that's why we have to take it, because really the essence at the beginning, when they've already put it together, the focus was strategy, but somehow I think for some reason today we have to put it there so that you remember that HR business partner, your role is not administrative, it is strategic. So I guess that's just a reminder for anybody that probably forgot the essence of that model. So what I just done here is take each word in the role to break it down. So you have strategic HR business partner. We're going to look at strategic, what it means. We're going to look at HR, what it means. We're going to look at the business, what it means, and what it means to be a partner. All right. So she gave me the title partnering, which is to say, it's action, it's a verb. So what are the things that I need to do to action this role? And that's what we're going to be focusing on. So strategic is about thinking of the future, building strategies, how do we execute, both from a corporate point of view and then bringing it down to HR point of view, all right? Of course, it goes without saying that anybody that's an HRBP must be an expert in knowledge of HR policies and practices within the organization. It goes without saying, all right? Now, business. This is saying that that person must must have knowledge of business generally. In other words, how do business even function? Must have knowledge of the industry that they're in, and of course, without saying, of their own business and the line that they're or function that they're supporting. Then what's a partner, a collaborator, a consultant, a problem solver? We'll now go, subsequent slides now delve into each of these areas to say, what are the things that you consider in these various building blocks? So in carrying out your role as HRBP, what are the things that must continually go through your mind to say, am I performing my role as a HRBP or not? Those are the things that we must now look at, going forward. So step by step, strategic. Like I said, it's about future thinking. The world is changing, the environment is changing and changing rapidly. And no thanks to technology, and thanks to technology, things are changing really swiftly. Before, I remember during COVID also the swift way things were changing. One moment you went to bed with the plan for tomorrow, you woke up, something that has changed. I'm like, okay, guy, we have to reply. So things were changing really rapidly. For HR function to serve the business, you must understand those changes and be able to quickly adapt your HR processes to those changes. If you're saying, I know this is our policy, and you're sticking to policy of 10 years ago, when the world has moved, then again, like I said, those back-end things are important to drive your support for the business. So you can't fail in any of the angles. All right. So here we're looking at what is the direction of the business or the organization? What are we as an organization trying to achieve or accomplish? What strategy? So you're involved in the process of corporate strategy development. So you're not coming to the party when they are done. They're not calling you when they are finished setting direction. You are part of the process. You must find or develop your capacity enough for them to think that they can't complete this process without inviting this HR person. That's the kind of level that we must get to as HR professionals. And they know that they would not be done if we did not bring this HR person. So let's just call them together so that we build it together. So we must have that process. And then when we're done with the corporate one, we'll now go back and say, okay, knowing this, how should HR drive or support the business to achieve those things? So you must understand strategy development. So this is not that, oh, I'm a HR specialist, so that's my own area. I don't know strategy. You must know strategy. You must understand corporate strategy. You must understand how to develop one. You must understand how to execute one. That's your role. All right. So things around also, because if you want to develop a strategy, you have to understand your industry, competition, external factors that drive your business. So external factors and SWOT analysis are things that you must understand. Now, I'm mentioning these things and I'm saying them like rushing through them, meaning that for anybody that wants to be a master HRBP now has to go and say, okay, what does it mean to develop a strategy? Tell me the steps. I need to study, get a book, go for a course on strategy development and implementation. That's what you want to start doing. Okay, so Tosin is telling me now that I have to understand external factors that drive my business. What is SWOT analysis? I need to go and check and study in that area and understand what those things are and how to apply them to my business and my role as HRBP. Do I even understand the business value chain of this organization that I'm in? How does this business make money? People only know their own areas. For you to be an HRBP, you must understand the in and out, the in totals, as they will say it, about that business. How do we make money in this? What are the various areas that drives money making in this? You must understand, you must be able to chart that value chain yourself, showing good understanding of that business. Of course, what's going on in my industry? Not just from a people point of view, by the way, even from a business, from here, we're talking about the business largely, but yes, from HR point of view, but you mustn't leave that picture of the organization, because that's what you serve. That's what you're there to do. We have removed the burden of all those everyday operations from you. Leave it to the other guys to do. Your role is that bigger picture. How do we continue to ensure that there's alignment between what we are doing and what the business is trying to achieve? So you must know what's going on in your industry. In this COVID period, for example, this period of crisis, how did others fare? For example, how did it impact them? What are they doing to respond to the situation? Because you can also learn a thing or two from there, or you can know how to reposition your business from there. So those are these things that you must think from a strategic point of view, that you must think of daily. It's not a one-time event, because things change. You might think that last week I did external factors analysis. It might have changed this week. So there's that ongoing wanting to understand the business, your environment, your industry, that you must know, and there are techniques around it, there are skills around it that you must learn. So this is just pointing you to the direction. You now have to go through those processes to say, how do I develop a strategy? How do I develop HR strategy? How do I ensure implementation of those strategies? How do I do industry or benchmark or research? What's the process for doing that? You have to do that. So because the focus of this program was partnering, I have to action it. What I've done is your focus, and then what competencies do you require to be able to play this role, i.e. in this case, strategy. So you have to have research and analysis skills. You must understand corporate strategy development and planning. You must be extremely good at business communication. And I'm saying here, both verbal and written communications. All right, you must understand HR strategy development and of course execution. You must understand business analysis, project management, and all that. So you now wonder, what his HR is here are coming to do? What is all this Tosin? The point is that for you to be a business advisor, you must understand the business enough to do that. Okay, so that's block one. We'll move to block two. And that area is focusing on HR. And I won't dwell so much on this because I take it for granted that, anybody that's going to advise the business on HR matters must know HR, right? But just for the sake of this course, I'll just scan through it and move very quickly. So of course, you must understand how the HR how your function is structured. What role must HR play to address the business needs? Each business line might require different things. Somebody, for example, a business line might have, when it comes to leadership or teamwork over there, they're fine, they're intact. Their issues might be something else, maybe acquiring new skills. So your own HRBP needs for your own business might be different for the next person. Yours is to mind your own and give feedback to the back end. So if there are changes that need to be made, Center of Excellence will now take it on and make those changes. If there are responses that need to be made, other people can respond to that. But yours is continually having that engagement with the business to say what is changing, what is moving, and how can we immediately, adapt to that. Of course, you have to understand HR strategy. A lot of HR professionals, I realize, understand the HR policies and the HR functions, but the idea of developing a strategy for HR, they do not know. So this is very, very critical. If you're going to be an HR business partner, and like we're saying, it's future focused. If you're going to do that, then you must understand how to develop strategies. No-brainer HR policies and procedures, employment laws and regulations that you must be aware of, you must know of, very conversant with, and be able to think on your toes on those things. At least also know where to go to find information. So, what sort of competencies do you need to be able to do this effectively? Of course, your knowledge of the labor laws is important. Your ability to develop HR strategy and planning is important. Like we mentioned earlier on, you must be a change management expert, so you have to go and understand what change management means and how do you implement it within any organization. Employee relations is really key, all right? Because one of the key things that you have to do in managing those lines of business that you're serving is the relationship between the manager himself and his people, all right? So it's key that you understand what employee relations means, and how you respond to it. Talent management, knowledge of HR policies, performance management, which is key, because at the end of the day, it's productivity that your outcome should be. All right, so that's important. Workforce planning, recruitment, L&D, important. You might not be an expert in it, but at least you'll be able to talk about it, because the expert will be at the back end designing things. Coaching. Now, I'm saying it because you're not coaching the employees alone, at least. Even the line manager, you have to be a coach to the person, particularly when it concerns people matters. Coaching in itself is a skill that I know that not so many managers have, and indeed not so many HR professionals have. So that's one area that you look at, and then see how you can immediately read up on it, certification on it, and whatever to grow your skills in that area. Of course, same line, leadership development. How do we ensure that we continue to raise a strong crop of leaders for the organization, for now and for the future? Employee engagement and indeed employee analytics, because you must be able to take the numbers of your business line and you're supporting and make sense of it. Absenteeism is increasing. What does that mean? What's the impact on the business and things like that? So you must be able to talk those numbers to the business. The third block is the business, obviously. So in this case, it goes without saying, because we are going to be a business partner, then you must understand business, right? And we must take this seriously. We must understand. You may not have studied business in school, maybe you studied HR or some other courses. Because you're now HRBP, you must go and learn, if you don't know already, about business. So understand generally how a business is managed. How do you run a general? It doesn't even have to be understand the major concept around the business, what the objectives are, and how do you typically run the business. Understand how your own organization is structured and how that business line as you support fits into that structure. What are the various moving parts within your organization and how do they contribute to the overall objective? You must understand those things. You can't be clueless about other areas of the business. Just think, oh, I'm HR professional, that's I know. No, that's not the way it works. You must understand the business in itself. That's how you can own a seat at the table. So that when the other business people are talking, you have quality stuff to contribute to the discussion. So of course, business line supports how is that business structured? What are the peculiarities of that function of that business area that you're serving? What role does it play in the organization? The jobs in that area, how do they contribute or impact the overall business? You must understand those things. They should be able to call you and say, oh, this person, this function, you should understand how. If they say this is moving in that function, this is what it means. You must understand that much. And of course, you must understand even within your competitors. If, say, for example, you are serving a business that's focused on Lagos and Southwest, you want to know what your competitors are doing in that region, for example, because it will help you compare. For example, how do you compare their own kind of people to yours? Because your real competitive advantage is your people. So how can you get industry espionage, if you will, to know who are the kind of people, what kind of quality. And LinkedIn exposes a lot to you anyway. You can use LinkedIn, use your network in the industry to see what kind of people are working in this kind of functions, to see how you compare people-wise, skill-wise to other competitors. In this block, you would, in terms of competencies, you need business acumen, you need industry knowledge, depending on whatever industry you have to understand how to do value chain analysis for whatever business. Competitive analysis is a skill that you must have. Then you must have internal business knowledge. No matter how long you stay in the company, you might find out that you just don't know anything about some particular areas of the business. Networking is key, all right? Particularly for those in large organizations. You can't just stick to your own HR function or the business you serve. You must be able to know somebody in another function and be able to call on anybody. I'm able to say across the organization, but also outside the organization. Because when you start doing industry analysis and things like that, you need to call somebody else to give you information and things like that. Somebody mentioned earlier, I think it was Emmanuel, about financial literacy. What does profit mean to my business? How is it calculated? I must know. All right. When is revenue? What do they mean by revenue? When is it net revenue? I'm like, what is that again? You need to understand all those terminologies, because if you're going to support the business that is measured based on financials, then you must understand the financials of the business. Of course, research and analysis is key for your role. Partner. The first word that comes to my head whenever I hear partner is somebody that supports you, guides you through, you can call this advisor, so that's what a partner means. So in this area, we're looking at giving business advice, all right? What HR solutions, you're asking yourself, what HR solutions can I implement for this business line so that I can support better employee engagement and improve productivity in that area? What are the things I can tweak here, change here, introduce here to make it better for them in that business function, all right? Change management. Let's see, the world is changing. Nothing's going to be the same again. It's always the one constant in life is change. So you must, one, be good at anticipating it. All right. When things are moving in your environment, you're like, this thing will still come and hit us here. What do we do? So before it gets to you, you're already planning a response for the situation. I think the most important thing, if you would ask me, is performance management area, because at the end of the day, what is being measured is productivity of that business line, and performance management is critical to that area. To play this role of business partnering well, you'll be engaging a lot, engaging with the top leaders, engaging with the management of that business line, engaging with employees. Your communication skills has to be top notch. You cannot be misconstrued, you cannot be misread, you cannot be, I don't know, badly behaved. Your communication has to be top notch, whether verbal or written. Because when, we know the way we are now when it comes to HR, once people see HR, they think you're speaking on behalf of the company. So you must understand the responsibility that you have in doing it. So when you send out mails, you are communicating even one-on-one with people, you must get that in mind, that I am representing the organization here. So how do I present this matter in a way that they understand, in a way that they can accept, and they can action? That's important. Employee engagement and employee relations. I just have to speed through because it's part 7 already. So the key skills here, and there are quite a bit. Collaboration. I said before, you have to work with the Center of Excellence, your guys in HR, you have to work with shared services. Collaboration and teamwork is critical. You'll be working with the various businesses, the employees there, the business manager there. You have to learn to collaborate. It can't be your way or everybody goes the highway. So collaboration is key. Performance management is taken for granted. Employee engagement is extremely important. Consulting skills, because literally you're a consultant. It's almost like HR function sent you as a consultant to that business to go and solve their HR needs. So consulting skills is something that she must have. Design thinking is a method of problem solving. Go and Google it, learn about it. How do you use that model to solve problems? Building trust. People have to trust you. You're asking me, how do I build trust? Trust me, there are materials on it. Go and learn it. How do I build trust? When people see, when Tosin says so and so, they believe she means so and so. They know that she's consistent. She will deliver on what she said. She won't discuss with me and then go and share the matters outside. Those are things that build trust or not build trust with them. So, but you can go and learn about how do I foster trust between people that I relate with and serve as a business. Persuasion and influencing skills, extremely important. Why would somebody go to a business manager and business manager says no, but then you arrive and they say yes? Persuasion skills. Yes, have your facts and figures. Yes, build trust. Yes, have the right personality. Because your brand, your personal brand too matters when it comes to these issues. But you must be able to put your justification in front, but also be able to defend and persuade people to accept. It's critical. Project management is also important because as long as there's change and something new is happening, you must have structures around how to manage that project to make those changes happen. So those are skills that you must learn. Critical thinking and problem solving, execution, communication. HR analytics is very important here. If you're going to, particularly when you're doing your persuasion skills, you want to go and meet management and say, this is the way to go. Bring numbers, bring the facts, bring the figures. That's what they understand. So you can't do without understanding HR analytics. These are loads of competencies that we must have. Look through all the 4 blocks again, once you receive the material to say, check yourself and say, okay, I think I'm good with collaboration. I think I understand performance management, but this consulting, I need to understand it. Put a question mark behind it and then begin to have a plan to develop yourself in the areas where you believe you have gaps. Shrem provides, because she can then ask me, okay, so what is the day-to-day? Because I've heard you, what is the day-to-day responsibility of this guy, so that I can differentiate it from what the performance management person is doing. Here, this is what you have. Majority of their business is engaging the business units. So they are more outside the HR office. All right, so the specialists can be in the HR office trying to, define something, design something and all of that, but they are engaging the business. They're everywhere, their business is engaging them to understand what's going on. All right, they're analyzing trends and metrics, in partnership with the HR group to develop solutions, programs, and policies. Bear in mind, they're doing the analysis, getting the feedback. The people that actually do the design are the the Center of Excellence guys at the back. All right. So you can just look through this. I mean, I think I pretty much have touched on many of this. Provides guidance on HR policy and interpretation to the business managers and the employees. Day-to-day performance management, like I said, this is the most critical, probably the most important function of the HRBP. All right, but also areas around coaching, counseling, career development, disciplinary actions, or other areas around employee relations is equally important. Identifying training needs for business or individual executive coaching needs, all right? So you identify those things, but then you now take it back to the experts behind to say, how best do we deliver this, to this business and things like that. So this just sort of provides like an overview of the day-to-day activities of the HR business partner. And you must realize that a lot of these things are engagement. So you can't be tired of talking. You must understand communication. You must have a good personal brand for them to trust you and be able to believe in you, that you can actually provide them solutions and support their businesses. Human Capital Institutes try to reinforce the difference, particularly when it comes to the strategic area of the HRBP. They call it from bricklayer to architect. So and not in a derogatory manner, is to say that, for example, your Center of Excellence, for example, are your bricklayers, because they have now received what the problem is. They're now going to design and start laying bricks to make that happen. The HRBP is the architect. So they understand the business, they understand where they're going to. So they are developing plans to say, this is how we must get there. To say, this is the best way to approach this, knowing this and this about this business line, this is how we must approach. So they are moving from reactive to proactive. I mentioned that before. They're moving from order taking to planner. You're the one that is planning, all right? HR is more, the typical HR function is more people focused. This person is business focused. It's a business focused person who has HR skills that they will use that skills to solve the business problem. So they're more business focused, they're more strategists, not operationalists. They're more, when I say global, not necessarily like worldwide, but they're not thinking just a functional area, is what I mean. Like they're having the bigger picture in mind. That's what I mean by global here versus local. They're results oriented. So unlike the typical HR person that will say, no, this is not what the policy says. This person is looking for, how do we work around this to provide solution or results to this person? So you're looking for solutions. You're a partner, not just a support person. Like I said before, you're engaging. It's important. You can't be an HRBP and be in your office, 80% of the time. Then I'm wondering, what are you partnering, And of course, while your typical HR function is can be more operational focused, HRBP has to be future focused about, their responsibilities. I think that's pretty much the overview that I have. I don't know if I have questions. I think I saw some coming.
Thank you so much, Tosin. Yes, we had some comments. In short, in my mind, I was like, this is like an LBS kind of session that we are having, on HR business partnering. And I saw a comment where someone said, "All this for one person." Yes,
exactly. That's business. It's serious business. It's not business that you are for the HRBP guy. Serious business. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So can we have questions now? I'm going to mute everyone.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, we can.
Yes, so I was one who said, wow, all this for one person. I was trying to find out, are there like areas of specializations even within the HRBP functions, or one person does all these things, or can you focus on one aspect? Like, can you have several HRBPs in an organization?
I understand your point, and my immediate response to you is that the HRBP is a generalist. It's shortcut. So now, but let me back up with an example. So you go to your business line manager, the manager that you're supporting, and he says, Tosin, I don't know what's wrong with my people. Their performance is dropping this past 2 months. I don't know what has happened. And then the person is sharing with you what they are going through. Now, first and foremost, you're engaging. It's a skill. You can't say I only focus on employee engagement. It's a skill. But he has come to you with a problem. So you must understand problem solving skills, understand what is the root cause of this thing. How do we go about solving it? Problem solving is part of your job. You know, you can't say I will only deal with the problem solving part, I won't engage. It doesn't work like that. So HRBP is a generalist. You must understand it. You must have a broad overview of everything working behind, but also understand the business. Which is why you have more senior people typically in that role. They're mostly generalist roles. But you can't say you're only doing analytics or you're not doing this one. You can't, no, it doesn't work like that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, but for the Center of Excellence, for example, you can focus on L&D alone, recruitment alone, and that's, yeah, you can do that back end. But for HRBPs, it's a generalist role, really. You must have it's a multi-skilled role, yeah.
Wow, okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, do you have any other questions?
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much, Tosin. I joined halfway, but even all I heard was very insightful, and it really helped answer a couple of questions. Yes, I'm quite familiar with the HRBP, generalist thing, but I've always wondered, where I work, I'm the only HR personnel, and I've always wondered where do I fall in? Am I a generalist? Because, I kind of do everything you just talked about. Well, not all, sorry. Not every single thing, but a lot of it. Yes, yes.
So
not every single thing. Yeah.
Perhaps you joined after I said that. I said for smaller organizations where you have what they call a one-man HR.
Yes, please. That's me.
It means that you must wear all those multiple hats. You are the Center of Excellence, you are the HRBP, you are the administrative expert. That's the definition of that, yes.
Thank you. I think you've answered my question. Yeah. I don't need other
That's the implication for that. And just to encourage us, while I was doing my research, this part was very interesting. I don't know if you know about Thomas Hansen, I think that's your name. It's a professional body that's also known for breakthrough thinking in HR. They said they put together the profile of a CEO, right? What does it take to be a CEO? They put all that profile together. And they started putting all of the profiles for CFOs, CHROs, CTOs, and other functional chiefs, right? And guess what? The function that is closest match to CEO is CHRO role.
Absolutely.
And I explain to you why. Because CHRO role essentially also, covers all those strategic partner, administrative experts, and all of that. So generally, you're a business-minded person who has HR skills, right? And what's the role of the CEO? It's largely leadership. Largely leadership. The people that are reporting to you are the technocrats, if you will, of the business. So the HR person is most suited because that's really what your role is about. It's leading people. All right. So they found out that just to encourage us as HR people, But I think what is missing for us still is the business area. That's why we are lacking. That's why I keep emphasizing the need to understand the business. All right, because while we are good with that leadership, and leading people, managing people, and all, we have all that skill. It comes with our function. But we are going to be leading organizations, so we must understand that business. And that's why I find that a lot of HR people have major gaps. So we must, I'm just saying, in terms of progression, career path wise, that's where you're headed with all of these skills. So it might seem a lot, but there's light down the tunnel.
Okay, let me also share, an experience. I've been in your shoes before, and the truth of the matter is you cannot do it all. So you need to, well, what I did in my own time was to have a plan. You need to weigh the current needs of the organization with the future needs of the organization and have an understanding as to what can you do now. Also, there's some roles, especially the administrative aspects, that you can also co-opt people in other units to help you out with, without compromising on the confidentiality. Exactly, or outsource, without compromising on the confidentiality of the HR records. But the more strategic you are, the more value you add to the organization.
Absolutely.
The more administrative you are, the less value you add to the organization.
Absolutely. Great one. Thank you. That's good.
That's okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Well, mine is not a question. It's just a rejoinder, more or less, or a thought following what you said. Because you see, someone has to do the admin work in the organization. Where do we strike the balance? Because someone has got to do that work now and in the future. So if everybody is running to the more strategic things, where do we strike the balance? Or how can the administrative aspect be better positioned, to be more relevant in the future?
Question. I think one of the things that I mentioned earlier on, particularly for the admin part of it, because it's mostly routine, what you want to do is to introduce the use of technology for those areas. All right, where you are, again, of course, your company must be able to afford it. So rather than having to bury yourself in that detail, if you already have the system that captures all of those data, all you're just doing is pulling reports and things like that, or pulling templates. It's easier for you to spend less time doing those things. So if you can adopt the use of technology to manage more of your admin area, of course, there will still be need for human interference now and then, but majority of it you should be relying on technology for those areas.
Thank you. Very well said. Thank you.
Fantastic, Cynthia. Thank you. Samuel, you've raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
When the COVID issue came up and had about 4 subordinates under me, and we have to downsize and downsize. We kept on downsizing until I'm the only person in the department now. So I have a lot of challenges managing the fleet, managing the personnel, handling the administrative work of the business. It's something hectic for me. And I keep on reporting to my MD that this thing has to be addressed, and it's like, well, you just have to keep managing, and it's not possible for me as the only person in the department to be handling all these tasks. Please, what do you suggest I do at this time?
My initial response to when you have loads to do and you can't seem to get through it in 24 hours is to prioritize. She mentioned something the other time to say, you know what, you don't. I think Shei's response initially even answers that, really, to say you can find for areas that are not going to be exposing or breaching confidentiality of staff data too much. You can find other people in other functions who can support you in those areas. So for example, if it comes to fleet management, I'm sure you can get somebody maybe in finance, somebody who understands data and can follow through on things. Just simple, a lot of those things, for example, is to follow up on, what's it called now? Maintenance routines and things like that. I'm sure you can get somebody who can sort of add that to their own job profile to embellish their work, even more job enrichment for them, so that you're not the only one bearing for smaller organizations where you have to manage resources, you have to think beyond the typical reporting line, which is to say this is HR admin, so you must sit down here. that's where for small organizations, they have the flexibility to even use people. So when you find somebody who perhaps is not 100% engaged, let me put it that way, or has demonstrated interest to say, let me even learn something new, something different from what I'm learning, look for those opportunities and drive those people in to say, okay, support me in this area. And so it doesn't have to be, I always tell people that your first response to issue is not to hire or to spend money. Sometimes the answer is staring you in the face and you just have to step back a bit, declutter yourself and say, okay, what else can I do in this situation? So you might find somebody who is not 100% engaged, for example, and you can say, okay, this 20% gap that you're having, come and help me do my own in this way. Again, like I said, not to breach any confidentiality or trust that management has placed in your hands. So step back and rethink, can there be somebody else who can help me, for example, with the fleet management area, e.g., or other areas of the business? I'm sure if you look around your business, you might find somebody who is not 100%, engaged, or who is just interested in learning something new. I don't know if that helped.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Roma, you had your hand up. Please go.
Thank you so much, Tosin, for this. Really appreciate it. I think you touched on what I was going to ask a bit, which was, let me not call it succession planning, but where you talked about coaching and you had said that HRBP are usually occupying senior roles or are usually, more senior people within the organization. So is there room for coaching even younger people along these lines of, the business partnership so that there also becomes, some sort of delegation to a large extent, just as you had mentioned in your comment to the last question, where, even the HRBP is not as overwhelmed, especially smaller organizations where, there's so much going on front end, back end, and then you're acting as almost a middleman as well, interfacing with external clients.
So because remember I mentioned that the HRBP role is a generalist role, and typically for you to be a sound generalist, it also means that you have picked up on skills across the various specialist areas. So there has to be some level of deliberateness. I think that can be challenging for most of us when we get bogged down, in day-to-day, work. But there has to be some deliberate of moving people from function to function for them, because for them to support you rightly, for example, they must understand the thing that you understand, which is some level of learning and development or performance management, the specialist area is what I'm trying to say. So a stint here, deliberately moving them to go and sit down with this person for 2 weeks. The L&D person, go and sit down with them for 2 weeks. Deliberately doing that to say, by that 2 weeks, I want you to have learned 1, 2, 3. Then put them out again and go and support this person. So there has to be some deliberateness into it. Otherwise, they'll just be people helping you carry files. They don't have content. Because for you to be successful at that HRBP role, you must have the foundation. That's the truth of it. Because you are supporting the business line with HR skills. So you must have first acquired those skills. I always tell people, the first place you want to start is the file pushing part, which is the admin part. Understand the data, the rudiments of even filing, as simple as that. It will help you build structures in your head for what the entire function is about. So have them move through those segments of the function, have them move around the specialist areas. That's how they can actually serve you better and learn more. So, but there has to be some structure, deliberateness about it for it to happen. Otherwise, we all lose ourselves in everyday work and it never truly happens.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think that also serves as some sort of encouragement for a lot of the junior or the more junior roles who aspire to that sort of progression, right? Where in a few years' time, for people to see beyond just doing a lot of the admin, because sometimes some people fail to see that trajectory, that there's actually some sort of progression in this role. You're not just doing admin now and going to end, at some point in the future. This is what the level of engagement that you may be involved with if you continue at this, and maintain some level of consistency. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Remy. Just to add to that point, is also our role, particularly for those who are more senior, as coaches to the younger one. Because somebody can be carrying a file I'm not really get the understanding or the value or the importance of that file. Just we're the ones carrying file. They don't get the essence of it. It's our role to also put importance in what they are doing. Because really they are young and they're upcoming, they might not get it. We get it. But you must push that importance. So a lot of people, for example, my guys on my team know me. If you come to my office, I say you're an intern. Somebody say I should give you to sign. What is this thing? What is it for? You're able to answer those questions. I'll ask you. I won't hear that you're an intern. Your business here is to learn. This letter you're giving me, what is it for? What is it about? And this person just said I should give you. Go back, ask the person what it's about. You understand? So we have to take that deliberateness in every opportunity we get to also train them so that they don't see themselves as just paper carriers. They see the essence of what they are doing, even though minute, so to speak, in their eyes at the moment.
Thanks a lot, Tosin. Jasmine, you have the floor.
I need more volume, please. I can barely hear you, Jasmine.
Okay, Jasmine, I think there's something with, can you type in the chat box? Not quite.
Wait, we can't hear you, Jasmine. Maybe you want to type the question in the chat box?
And then we'll take it up from there. Okay. Kemisola, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Okay, so I just wanted to share my experience as regards Samuel. I don't know if I can.
Your experience regarding what?
Can I? I said I just wanted to share my experience regarding Samuel's question as being the only one in the department.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure we can take that briefly.
Okay, so I would also want to add to what you said, which is very, very valid. Delegating, that's very key. And I think when at that point when we were like 8, and then we had to, I would say, right size, because at that point in time I had to look at what is our processes. Maybe Samuel would need to look at those processes that they have that are long. You try to simplify out. So you might need to want to look at those processes and then let people know, like an awareness. It cannot be everything to everybody. That was one thing that I actually had to tell myself, that I cannot be everything to everybody. So the little time he has, the little time he needs to communicate to people, you should let them know what they need to know in terms of probably from onset, like for newly hired, just tell them from your onboarding all they need to know about the organization, the onboarding, the leave allowance, all those regular questions. And I think he also needs to look at his HR functions and then time management. You need to learn how to manage your time very well. Because it was until I put all this to use that I eventually realized that I can even do much more aside delegating that I did, and then aside also leveraging on technology. Then being proactive, thinking ahead of time, planning yourself, your to-do as well. Okay, what are the things I need to do? So like aside, okay, thank God we talked about, even as the HR, the only person in the HR department, you need to be futuristic in terms of what are the things like this. And I feel that will go a long way. So So I just feel like sharing these time management, multitasking as well. I know guys don't really know how to multitask, but if they can do two at a time, I think that would
be
go
careful
a
right
long
there.
way. Thank you.
Be careful right there. But thanks a lot, Kemi, for your contribution. Essentially, what I hear you say is that personal effectiveness. I think that's one thing I probably didn't put in there. But it's somewhere subsumed under execution. Personal effectiveness is extremely key, particularly for HRBPs who do a lot more meetings than actual work. All right, because you'll be meeting people a lot, meeting. Now finish 5 o'clock, you're not doing your own work, you're meeting all day. So yeah, I hear you on that, and thanks for the contribution. Personal effectiveness is necessary. You must understand how to manage your time, prioritize and things like that. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take a final question from Samuel so that we'll manage time. We've really gone far above the time we were to spend. So Samuel, you have the floor for the final question.
Okay, my contribution is not actually a question. I want to ask for the second time, are we going to get this material today? Because I really need to study this material and start the implementation.
I will send to Shay today. Then it's up to Shay.
Please send it now. Please.
Samuel, you have to be nice to me. If you're nice to me, I'll send it tonight.
Please, I'm with Samuel. Send it now.
It's okay.
All right, no problem.
You'll get access to the recording and the slides tonight.
Hello, sorry to so Jasmine, I think Jasmine is sending me a message, but it's privately. I think she did that on mistake. She was one that was trying to ask a question, but she wasn't clear, she wasn't audible enough.
Okay, so please read out the question.
Okay, so she's saying, I was going to say, where I work at the moment, there's little to no opportunity for me as the HR personnel to bring ideas for proper structure, as the management, which is usually Chinese, wants it to be their way alone. How can I be strategic and make myself valuable to the organization?
For want of being slightful to any nationality, or I was this Chinese story again. I think it's the thing that the Chinese community also needs to look into. But the first point of call, I would say, I think I breezed over that point, but it's extremely important, is building trust. And it doesn't apply just to Chinese. It can even be a Nigerian person that's the way the person is, all right? I've had to work with both nice bosses and not so nice bosses, right? But it takes some time, it takes consistency to delivering quality work on your own part for them to start saying, I think I can let this one slide for her at this point. And gradually, my question initially, but gradually it will come. But you have to, there's personal branding, there's building trust that first needs to be laid. You don't expect people to just listen to you because you're the HR person. It doesn't work like that. Anyway, as a matter of fact, Chinese or no Chinese. Just because they've hired you and they put title head of HR doesn't mean that they should listen to you. You then have to prove your worth. For them to now say, at any point that they're even having a meeting, they forgot to call you before they say, come, let's go and meet this girl before we conclude. But it's because you have built trust, you have consistently delivered, provided results, solutions that they found extremely valuable to the business. Because if you're telling the Chinese man what affects his money, I think he will pause a bit and listen. But it's when we start talking HR-ish, what's that word? That was HR linguists. Lingo, yeah, exactly. That's where the problem, there's a disconnect. When you're talking HR, they're talking business, there's no connection. So until you leave your area and move to theirs, that's when it can be a rubbing of mind. Until then, that battle is going to be on for a while. So I'll go back to personal branding and building trust. Building trust comes with delivering quality consistently for over a period of time, and might vary from person to person and organization to organization. Yours might be a short time, it might be long, it will vary, but that has to be built. So you can't just get it because you're the HR person. It doesn't work like that.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Tosin. I mean, this has been this is an MBA class, on in HR, and HR MBA class. Thank you so much. It's been insightful. It's been wonderful. We never had this many people, I see that a number of people have also joined us from other groups. Thank you all. We see you. We appreciate you. The slides will be sent to our HR community group. Tosin, can I send the slides also and the link on the
yes, the leaders group,
on the leaders page?
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll send it also for others so that you can have access to it. Thank you so much, Tosin. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
I wish us all a blessed week ahead.
God bless you. I would like to personally clap for her.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone. Have a good week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.